Dear beloved Thầy, dear beloved community, I'm so glad that you're here. Today I'd like to share with you about a discourse, one of my favorite teachings of the Buddha. This discourse is called the Discourse on Youth and Happiness. How many of you still feel that you are young? Raise your hands. Good. Okay, I want more of you to raise your hands. However old you are, you may be in your teens, or in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or 60s. I know somebody here is 82 and a half years old, and she has been here for a month and a half, and she's determined to be here for 3 months during our autumn retreat. So however old we are, we can still feel young in our spirit. So Discourse on Youth and Happiness does not only concern people in their teenage years or in their 20s, okay? This is for all of us. So this sutra is in the book Chanting from the Heart, Discourse on Youth and Happiness. And it took place at a monastery called Bamboo Forest Monastery, near the town of Rajagriha. This is one of the monasteries of the Buddha. And at that time, near the monastery, there was this river, and a young monk was bathing himself. At that time, there was a bhikshu. Bhikshu means a fully ordained monk, who in the very early morning came to the banks of the river, took off his upper robe and left it on the bank, and went down to the river to bathe. Can you visualize this? Yeah, a young monk bathing by the river in the early morning. After bathing, he came out of the river, waited until his body was dry, and then put on his upper robe. So as he was drying himself by the bank of the river, minding his own business, probably just minding his own mindful breathing, right? Yes. Suddenly, a goddess appeared. Can you imagine this? A goddess appeared whose body, surrounded by light, lit up the entire bank of the river. I'm sure the monk was very embarrassed by this time. And so the goddess asked the young monk, "Venerable, you've recently become a monk. Your hair is still black. You are very young. At this time in your life, shouldn't you be perfumed with oils, adorned with gems and fragrant flowers, enjoying the 5 kinds of sensual desire? Why have you abandoned your loved ones and turned your back on the worldly life, living alone?" Now you can also look around. You see all the young monks and nuns around you? You see? Yes. You know, this monk, his name was Samiti. The name of the young monk was Samiti, and this is in the sutra called Samyutta Nikaya 1. To 2.10, the name of the monk. Let's look at the logo up there. You see the word samadhi? Similar to this. Samadhi means concentration. But his name, Samiti, changes an I, add a D. It means handsome. A handsome monk. So he came to the Buddha soon after the Buddha achieved enlightenment. He came with his father, a very influential man, and with the king and the ministers. And when he saw the Buddha and the Buddha's community of young monks, he was very impressed. He saw that these people lived a simple life, and yet they looked so radiant, so happy, and he was impressed. And he asked to be ordained soon after that. So he was ordained at the age of 22. And he had the name Samiti, a handsome young monk. So as he was bathing at the river, drying himself, and the goddess asked him, why? Why have you abandoned your loved ones? All the sensual desire, pleasures, to wear this robe, to live such a simple life. And we can also look around. Yeah? We ask the young monks and nuns here, you can ask the same question. Actually, this autumn retreat, we have over 10 young laymen staying with the brothers. You can ask them too, why are you here? Why are you not out there, right, living it up? Huh? Why are you here anyway? You can also ask yourself, why am I here? It's a Sunday. Shouldn't I be enjoying, the internet, social media right now? Why should I be at a monastery? So the goddess did not exist 2,600 years ago at the time of the Buddha. But the god and the goddesses, they exist right now and right here, all around us and also inside of us. And it is good that we ask questions like that. Why am I here? What am I doing here? What is going on in me? What is going on in my relationship? Sometimes it's scary to ask those kind of questions. But if we ask, we have a chance to reach the answers. So this is a challenge. And so this young monk, he said, I have not abandoned the present moment in order to seek pleasures in a distant future. I have abandoned pleasures that are untimely for the deepest happiness of this moment. And so the goddess would ask, what do you mean? Probably most of you, this goes over your head. What do you mean? Right? So they talk back and forth for a while. And the monk, finally he said, I have only been ordained for 2 years. I do not have the skill to explain to you the true teachings taught by the Buddha. So according to this Samadhi Sutta, the background was that he had been asked some questions before, and he answered, but the spirit was not true to the teachings of the Buddha. So when the Buddha heard about it, the Buddha scolded him. So he learned his lessons. So this time when this goddess asked, he only answered a few times. And then he said, please ask the Buddha. I'm not so sure. Okay, I've only been ordained for 2 years. And so the goddess said, right now, the Buddha is surrounded by so many influential gods and kings and ministers. How can even reach the Buddha? And the young monk said, I will take you there. I will ask the Buddha for you. I feel this so much for our teacher, because our teacher, Thầy, has also been very influential. Many people wanted to meet him, but us as his monastic and lay disciples, we always had access to him. He would always make time for us, and we always felt in his presence we were the only ones that existed. So when I read this part, I really understood this, how a young monk could meet the Buddha directly. So the young monk went to the monastery, Bamboo Forest Monastery, and recounted this conversation, this dialogue to the Buddha. And the Buddha agreed to answer, to address this question. So the young monk said, World Honored One, if this goddess had not spoken sincerely, she would not have come here with me. At that moment, there was a sound from afar. Venerable monk, I am here. I am here. Are you here? We have to be here if we want to learn something, right? If we want to learn about ourselves, discover our own life, we have to be present, to be in the here, in the now, not to be lost in the past, in the distant past, lost in our yearning, regrets, and not to be lost in the distant future, in our anxieties or uncertainties or fantasies. We need to be in the here and the now in order to discover and to live our life fully. So let us enjoy one sound of the bell and really bring back the mind to the here and the now. And as soon as the Buddha heard that the goddess answered, I'm here, the Buddha responded with a poem we call a gatha. Beings produce wrong perceptions concerning objects of desire. That is why they are caught in desire. Because they do not know what desire really is, they proceed on the path to death. This is a very deep teaching, so I will go through it with you. In the Vietnamese version, it said that because people do not see clearly, không thấy rõ ái dục mới vướng vào ái dục. Because you do not see clearly the nature of desire, that is why you are caught in desire. And so we have 5 kinds of sensual desire. We call the 5 kinds of sensual desire. One is wealth, money. The other one is sex. The third desire is fame, power. The fourth one is food. And the fifth one is sleep. These are the 5 kinds of sensual desires. We all have this, a lot or a little. Some of us may have a desire for wealth. When I was in medical school, one of my classmates, his deep desire was to become a millionaire. So he chose radiology. That's a strong desire, yeah? A desire, this one in Vietnamese is called sắc. Sắc also means the form, yeah? But it also implies sex. We'll go more into that. I was on an airplane flying overseas one time, and just about 7 in the morning, I went to the restroom behind, at the end of the airplane, and as I was walking back to my seat, I just caught this glimpse of a man holding his iPhone or something, and it was pornography on that. And as soon as he felt my presence, he just put it aside. But I already caught that image on the screen. And I felt partly disturbed, but very sad. Very sad for the young man, or I'm not sure how old he was. At 7 in the morning, he was viewing pornography. What would he feed himself in the afternoon? What would he be feeding himself late at night? The kind of things, the kind of desire that we feed ourselves day after day, moment to moment. And when we feed ourselves like that, it will manifest in our speech and in our bodily actions. And the unhealthy food that we feed ourselves will become unhealthy speech and unhealthy bodily actions. Some of us, we may not have strong desire for wealth and sex, but we may have a real drive for fame and power. That's important to us. Or we may focus a lot on food or sleep. So we need to identify the essential desires in us and to see which ones are strong in us, which ones are driving us in our daily life. And we need to see them clearly, because the Buddha said when we have wrong perceptions of our desires, that is why we are attached to desires. And that is why we proceed on the path to death. Yeah? So, in Buddhist psychology, we use a circle, and we divide that into 2 halves. And on the upper level of this mind consciousness, we have the 5 sense organs of eyes. Up here we have the eyes. We have the nose. We have the tongue or the mouth. Okay? We have the body. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, the ears. Yeah. So the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. These are our 6 sense organs, 6 sense organs. And when we look outside, the eyes want to grasp for the form. Yeah? A nice body, a nice car, an expensive house. The eyes seek the form. The nose seek the smell. Like you have cologne, we call scorpion, or samsara. Yeah, so we have. Yeah, or we yearn for the smell of grandma's cooking, something a little more wholesome. Yeah? The tongue seeks good food. The body seeks touch, sensation. The ears seek sounds, conversations, music. The mind seeks thoughts, generates thoughts and feelings and perceptions constantly. So we have these 6 sense organs that will, when we talk about the second shak, the form, it also represents not just the form, but also the sound, the smell, the taste, the touch, the thoughts in the mind, okay? The things that we grasp for. And when we have wrong perceptions, in Chinese character, the word perceptions is very important, very interesting. So this character right here, you have mok, means a tree. You have mok, that's the eye. A tree standing next to the eye, we call that tướng, means a sign or appearance. Okay? But with that, you add the mind underneath. This is tam, the mind underneath. It becomes this whole character means perceptions. Or tưởng. See that? The eyes seek for the form outside. And as it enters into our store consciousness, it gives rise to perception. You look at something and then you think, oh, that's beautiful. I want that. Oh, that's ugly. I hate that. I want to run away from it. You see? So these 3 that comes together, not just the object outside, but our sense organ, our mind that we put into it, then it gives rise to that perception. So when we practice mindful breathing, we practice breathing in, I'm aware of my in-breath. Breathing out, I'm aware of my out-breath. We learn to just simply be aware of the breath and not putting too much thoughts into it. Just clearing the mind, allowing the mind to be spacious. And then when we look at something, a sunrise, a sunset, a person, whether that person is known to us or not, if our mind can just stay quiet and calm, then this kind of perception from the past experiences, you see, the things that behind it will not arise as much, or it will not be delayed. Otherwise, as soon as you see a person walk in, and that your mind registers, that person, I hate that person. I had a bad experience with her last week. Therefore, I don't want to look at her. Very quickly, we shut down. And we do not see the person in the present moment anymore. Or if he reminds us of somebody else in the distant past who caused us a lot of suffering, then we, even though that person is not the same, and yet we discriminate that person because of our painful past. Or if that person reminds us of somebody that we had a pleasant experience with in our childhood or when we were growing up, then we want to come towards that person. We have that inclination, that attraction. You see? So it's not, we don't see things as they are, but they go through this lens of the past. Often we have that. And that is why the Buddha said, wherever there's signs, there's deception. We're caught in the signs. And we are caught in the deception. Our own generation of these perceptions, of these feelings. And our teacher also said that most of our perceptions are incorrect. More than 90% of the time, they are incorrect. Exactly because of this, because of our colored lens. We're not able to see reality as it is. And so, we go back to this. We have wrong perceptions. I think of an image like we have a wall of wrong perceptions. And so, how do we get attached? Because we have the wrong perceptions. We put a hook. You think of attachment. You attach something onto it, right? We have this hook, these ideas about a person or a situation, and then we hook onto this, our fantasies, our dreams and hopes and expectations, or our aversion, our hatred. Many times in relationships, that's what happens. We don't know the person very well. We just are attracted to the form, to the sound, to the smell, to our own thoughts about the person, to our own imagination about the person. And so therefore, we want to hook on, to attach ourselves to that person. And along with that, many expectations and fantasies. And that's a burden for ourselves and for the other person. And often, after a while, we discover the person is not anything like what we have imagined, right? Or what we have expected or anticipated. And so we feel disappointed or we feel overwhelmed. And so when we have, with attachment, it always goes hand in hand with aversion. Attachment will go hand in hand of aversion. It's that same form that we were so attracted to, that we were so attached to. But after our perceptions we have become disillusioned by our own perceptions, our own expectations, then that still same form, these eyes do no longer want to look at. We don't want to see the person anymore. Even the sound of the person makes us feel the aversion, make us cringe, unhappy. Has it ever happened to you? Yes? Yes. Perceptions. Come back to our own perceptions and breathe. And calm them down and see them more clearly so that we don't get hooked on it. Hang on it all of our life energy, investment, and then become disillusioned. So the things that we are so attracted to, that we hold on to, are also the very things that we push away, that we abuse, that we hurt. So when we practice, we learn to have more equanimity. We learn to see things more clearly as they are, not to get caught in our perceptions, and not to get caught in the extremes of either attachment or aversion, but there is more equanimity in our own way of being. And the Buddha said right here, Beings produce wrong perceptions concerning objects of desire. That is why they are caught in desire. Because they do not know what desire really is, they proceed on the path to death. Let us enjoy a sound of the bell. Death here is not that you lie down, you don't breathe out anymore, you don't breathe in anymore. Not, the body goes through moment to moment. It goes through death, moment to moment. Skin cells die, slough off, new skin cells are regenerated. And it's true for most of the cells in our body, depending on their lifespan, whether they have a rapid turnover or not. But they all go through that moment to moment death. And also at the moment that we do not breathe in and do not breathe out anymore. But this death here, the Buddha talks about, is the death of the spirit. And in another sutra, when the Buddha addressed this, and he talked about when people get caught, when people busy themselves with regretting the past, worrying about the future, and getting lost in the present, they are like fresh young grass, cut and put out in the sun to dry. That is the kind of death that we experience when we have wrong perceptions, when we pursue the objects of desire, not knowing what their true nature is. We are like fresh young grass, cut and put out in the sun to dry. Have you felt that way sometimes? You've felt that way in your life before? Your body can be so young and healthy, and yet you feel like you're dying. I met this young man at a center just recently, and it was at a gym, so he was so built, so healthy looking. And he said, but you know what, I feel like I'm not able to live my life. I feel like I'm dying. I'm not able to do anything. He was full of anxiety, and he couldn't really be restful. His body was so agitated, so restless. That is the kind of death that the Buddha talks about. Now the Buddha asked the goddess, do you understand this gatha? If not, please say so. So do you understand it yet? Maybe? Okay, so maybe we'll go on to the next one. So the goddess addressed the Buddha. I have not understood, world-honored one. I have not understood, well-gone one. So the Buddha recited another gatha for the goddess. When you know the true nature of desire, the desiring mind will not be born. When there is no desire and no perception based on it, at that time, no one is able to tempt you. Okay? When you know the true nature of desire, the desiring mind will not be born. So what is the true nature of desire? Let's use the form as an example, because it will stand for all the sound, the smell, the taste, the touch. It will stand for wealth. It will represent all the sensual desires that we tend to get caught up in, right? Form can be beautiful, can be pleasurable. And even the Buddha acknowledged this. Did you ever know this? When I read this sutra, I was so surprised. Because some scholars said, the Buddha said everything was suffering. Did you hear about this? But the Buddha did not say everything was suffering. So in this sutra called Mahali, in the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said, if Mahali, this young, layman, if Mahali, this form was exclusively suffering, immersed in suffering, steeped in suffering, and if it were not also steeped in pleasure, beings would not become enamored with it. So there is pleasure in form. There is pleasure in sound, in taste, in touch, in thoughts. We can be very addicted to our feelings, right? Even suffering can be very addictive. Have you experienced that before? You're suffering, you're sad. What do? You listen to really sobby music. Yeah, you know. Or you're real angry, you get in the car, you drive real fast, and you hear heavy metal music. To do what? To water that seed of anger, or to water that seed of depression in you, because it feels good. You get a high in it. When I was in college, I used to think, when I'm depressed, I write better poetry. And I think I did. But it was depressing poetry. It offered no way out, but it sounded good. And so the Buddha, lo and behold, acknowledged, recognized that form is pleasurable. But because form is pleasurable, immersed in pleasure, nghĩa là cái hình sắc á, nó chìm đắm trong cái lạc thọ, cái khoái lạc. Form is immersed in pleasure, steeped in pleasure, and is not steeped only in suffering. Beings become enamored with it. By being enamored with it, they are captivated by it. And by being captivated by it, they are defiled. Means they become caught, they become disappointed, and they suffer and cause a lot of suffering to others. How many of us have suffered from sexual abuse? 1 in 4 women has experienced sexual abuse as a child or as a young person. 1 in 4 women. And men also experience sexual abuse. And who are those abusers? Are they devils somewhere? No, they are us. They are our fathers, our uncles, our brothers, our neighbors. They are in us. Because we have wrong perceptions of desire, and we water them day after day with images and sounds and thoughts and actions. They will manifest in our speech and bodily actions and impose suffering upon ourselves and others. That is what the Buddha meant by they become defiled. When they get enamored and captivated, mê hoặc bởi cái form, cho nên trở thành ô nhiễm. How do we learn to not be caught by form, to see its true nature? And what is the true nature of form? What is the nature of all of these kinds of sensual desire? When you see a form, how beautiful it is, do you know what it's subject to? Form is subject to the form. However a beautiful figure may be, is subject to this figure. Do you have a loved one, somebody you know, who's so young, so healthy, so beautiful in physique, and that person gets sick? How the body can be deformed so quickly. It can be heartbreaking to see the person become deformed right in front of you. The person can become disfigured right in your eyes within weeks or months. And the practice is to breathe with that and to realize that is also the nature of my own body. My body is of a nature to deform, to become disfigured. I learned to love this body, to take good care of it, to feed it with healthy images and sounds and food and thoughts. But let not be fooled by it and think that this body is permanent, is fixed, always like this. All we need is to look around and to see the changes all around us. All we need is to look right within us and to see the constant flux in our own body and thoughts and feelings. At one point the Buddha said, of all the donations, offerings that you can make and the merits that you can gain, the deepest, highest merit that you can gain is from recognizing impermanence. So you can donate $1 million and that gives you a certain amount of merits. But if every day you give rise to the thought, another day has passed, I'm becoming older, sickness is in me, is encroaching, that gives you a lot more merit than all the busyness that you experience in your daily life, all the offerings and service and work that you do. Just to be aware that life is impermanent, that this body is of a fleeting nature, that it is a composite of all different elements. Sometimes I did this when I was just ordained the first few years, and I suffered a lot. My partner had died before that, and I suffered every time I thought about his death. And at the same time, I still experience the attraction to this person or that person, or if somebody was attracted to me, I was still distracted by that, affected by that. So at one point, as we were sitting in a meditation hall, all of us brothers and sisters and lay friends, and I visualized in my mind all of these people sitting so beautifully, stably, peacefully. Now, if we just did not have our clothes on and the room was cold, could you really sit so stably and beautifully? Could you really look so dignified? No, probably we're all like shiver or something, like curl up, right? Just one small factor, such as the piece of clothing or the temperature in the room, it can change our demeanor, our way of being right there. See? So I learned to see those different conditions that enable us to be who we are in this moment, and to appreciate those conditions and not to be caught in that particular object itself, because it is made of so many conditions. And with that contemplation, with that visualization, I learned to say, may I be safe. May I be happy. May I be free. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be free. May we not create these hooks of wrong perceptions and cause each other to lose our own path and each other's path and cause each other suffering. May you be beautiful and free. Let us enjoy a sound of the bell. The Buddha asked the goddess, have you understood this gatha? If not, please say so. Have you understood the second gatha yet? The Buddha is very compassionate, because the goddess answered, I have not understood, world-honored one. I have not understood, well-gone one. So the Buddha recited another gatha for the goddess. If you think you are greater, less than, or equal to, you cause dissension. When those three complexes have ended, nothing can agitate your mind. So the first two gathas, the first two poems, actually the Buddha talked about impermanence. There are three characteristics of all phenomena. The first characteristic is impermanence. And we see form is subject to deformity, right? It can be deformed every moment. Figure is subject to disfiguration. It becomes disfigured. That's impermanent. We learn that it is made up of all of these conditions, of food, of water, of earth, of air, of education, of culture, of tradition, right? So we learn that this is the first characteristic of all the things that we cling to or that we are averse to. They are of a nature of impermanence. Another word for it is empty. They are empty. They have a nature of emptiness. And the second gatha, when the Buddha said, there's no desire, when you see the true nature of desire, then the desiring mind will not be born, and no one is able to tempt you. Who's that no one? It's us. We will not tempt ourselves, right? Yeah, because you see that wall that I drew on the wall, on the board? We have those wrong perceptions. We create the hook, and we hook on it our expectations and fantasies and delusions and illusions. But when we don't produce those wrong perceptions so much anymore. You still produce, you still get attached to, attracted to, you still want to cling on to something, hang on to something. But if you smile to that thought, smile to that tendency and say, hello, my desiring mind. Hello, my tendency to get attached. Hello, form. Hello, taste. Hello, sound. I know you are there, and I'm smiling to you. You bring more equanimity to it, and you are not so caught by it. So no one is able to tempt you, just means that you are not tempting yourself anymore. Now the third and the fourth poems that the Buddha gave the goddess deal with the second characteristic of all phenomena. The first one is impermanence, and the second characteristic is non-self. Impermanence of all phenomena. And now the Buddha talk about non-self. If you think you're equal to, you're less than or greater to, less than or greater than, you cause dissension. Actually, the word is not dissension. In Vietnamese, it say mặc cảm hơn kém bằng, tạo ra nhiều rối rắm. Rối rắm means entanglement. When we have these three complexes of inferiority, superiority, or equality, we cause entanglement or chaos in our own thoughts. We discriminate this person. We hold on to the other person or this issue or that issue. We become divided from within, and we become divided as a family, as a nation, as a world. That's because we have wrong perception, and we see there's such thing as a self. But the practice is to see the non-self. Nature of all things. I have this bean called the Yin-Yang Bean, and it's my favorite bean, favorite Dharma instrument. And you see that it has two halves. Half of it is black, and half of it is white. Let's use this circle right here. Let's say the upper part is white, and the lower part is black. On the white part, white half, you have the black dot. And on the black half, there's a white dot. It's called the Yin Yang Bean. You can order it online. But you can also call it an interbean, because in the white, there's a black. In the black, there is the white. In this, there is that. And in that, there's this. And this is a deep teaching of the Buddha on interbeing. And this is an anecdote, a medicine to cure our wrong perception about a fixed, separate self. This is who I am. This is why I am. I'm not that. I'm only this. That's about self, the ego. But when we learn about interbeing, we see that in me, there's mother, there's father, there are ancestors, human ancestors, animal ancestors, plant ancestors, mineral ancestors. Do you know we have minerals are so important for our living, for our life? If you have a concentration of certain like potassium level or magnesium level. It's very tightly controlled. If you have a little more of potassium or magnesium, your heart will beat faster or slower, and it can endanger your life. Yeah? The level of calcium, minerals, the mineral ancestors are very alive in us, and they enable us to have this very life. So when we see it like that, we learn to protect, not just ourselves, but we learn to protect other species, other animals, other plants, other minerals, other nations, other peoples, because we do not exist as an independent self, but we inter-are. We have the nature of interbeing, and that is called non-self. So in order to transform our wrong perceptions, our delusions and fantasies, we learn to see the true nature of all things with the eyes of impermanence, with the eye or the insight of non-self. Yeah. And the last, now the Buddha asked the goddess again, have you understood this gatha? If not, please say so. The Buddha is incredibly patient and compassionate. And I also try to explain. I'm not sure. Do you understand what I share? Yeah, is it clear enough? The Buddha recited another gatha for the goddess when she said, I have not yet understood. Ending desire, overcoming the three complexes, our mind is stilled. We have nothing to long for. We lay aside all affliction and sorrow in this life and in lives to come. When we are able to have right view and right thinking instead of wrong views, wrong thinking, wrong perceptions, we are able to end the wrong desires. We are able to overcome those three complexes of inferiority, superiority, and equality. Some people are confused. They said, I thought equality is really important. What do you mean by it's also unhealthy? It's also a complex. It's still because we see we're different from others. We're still comparing. You see, it's still a comparing mind. And it still causes a separation between us and others. It's still us and others, us and them. But when we see the nature of interbeing, we'll be a lot more tolerant, a lot more accepting. And we are able to overcome these three complexes. And the mind becomes still, and we have nothing to long for. And thus the afflictions and sorrows can be laid aside. And this is the third characteristic of all phenomena we call nirvana. Nirvana is not a place you go to after you die. It's like we think, the kingdom of God. We go to the kingdom of God when this body disintegrates. When we went to Jakarta in Indonesia, there's a funeral home with the name Nirvana. We all chuckle as we drove the bus. We drove the bus by this place called Nirvana. But Nirvana actually means a state of coolness. In the time of the Buddha, the people, they used wood to make fire. And then, this burning charcoal, and you leave it there overnight, and then it cools down. It became cool ash, and in the morning you can put your hand in that pile of ash, and it doesn't burn your hand. And they call that nirvana. Nirvana means coolness, a state of coolness. Nirvana means all of our discriminations and preferences, aversions and attachment can become subdued, can become calm. We see them for what they are, and we do not react from that place. And thus, there's nirvana. I knew a young man since 14 years ago or more when we had Deer Park. He started to come here. And I've been away for 7 years, and I came back and I learned that he had cancer. And I went to visit him in the hospital a few times at his home, and then the last time I went was in the hospital as he was dying. And I asked him how he was doing. His wife had left him just a month or a month and a half before he had to be hospitalized. And he said to me, "Sister D, I don't have any bitterness towards my wife. I wish her happiness. I'm glad how things worked out, because now in my last days, I have time with my mom and my dad." We talked about his trip to Vietnam a few years before that, and this and that, and he told me, "There's so many things I want to do." And I said to him, "But at one point your body might not be able to continue. Are you okay with that?" And he looked at me and he smiled. And he said, "I will enjoy every moment that I still have left." He was only 46 years old. And a few moments before he died, his parents and his 2 siblings surrounded him by the hospital bed. And his family had been informed, when you have lung cancer, when a patient has lung cancer, the person can die in a very agonizing way, painful way, gasping for air. It can be very painful, to witness. So his mother was really afraid of this. But she had learned to practice for many years, and we surrounded her. We surrounded her and helped her. But that moment when they know he was dying, he wasn't able to talk anymore, but he looked at each family member. And the mother said to him, "I give you the permission to leave. It's okay. Your dad and I will take care of your brother and sister, and your brother and sister will take care of us. You don't have to worry." And then it felt as if he was leaving. She said, "Wait, can you give Mom your last smile?" Because he was just a joyful person. He loved life. "Can you give Mom just one last smile?" And he smiled. And he breathed out 3 times. And he made the transition just like that. Just like that. So peacefully. And his mother told me afterwards, "You know, it saddens me to think that he is not longer physically, but I do not suffer. This is our life. We have a choice in a spiritual life, we really see we do have a choice. Not to choose between brands of cereal, brands of jeans or furniture, but to choose to live beautifully and to die beautifully in each moment. To choose to see things more clearly as they are, so that we do not waste our time and energy and life juice that's still there in us, not to waste it, but to invest more in the things that matter, and that is to take better care of our body, to cherish more our life, to cherish more the people around us, to live more harmoniously and lovingly. And even if this body disintegrates, becomes deformed and disfigured, however old we are, we can still smile and have peace in our heart, and we can make the transition in a state of coolness, in a state of freedom. There's a Zen poet who wrote a poem that I translated. It goes, thịt da rửa mòn, xác thân tàn úa, lòng vẫn vui như những đóa hoa xuân. Sông núi rộng, ngại gì thân nhỏ bé, xin trả về cho trời đất bao la. The skin and flesh are disintegrating. This body is withering. Yet my soul is still so joyful, like spring flowers. Mountains and rivers are vast. There's no concern of this tiny body. So I'm returning it to the immense earth and sky. My soul is still joyful, like spring flowers. That is what we can learn to live every moment. One last poem I'd like to read to you to conclude this sharing. This one I wrote on February 19th, 2018. For so many years, I yearned for you. I thought of you each and every day. In the midst of busyness, in the midst of joy, in the midst of solitude, a thought of you would arise like something dropped suddenly into a deep, hollow well, reverberating, stirring, unquenching. Now, there's no more thought of you, and I am glad. There's no more yearning for you, and I am thankful. I can just be with what is, simply being. It's a very simple poem, but it has taken me over 19 years to practice, to get to where I am, to not feel the need to grasp, to hold on to something, to be able to view something even so beautiful with more equanimity and freedom. And I hope that my young brothers and sisters here in this audience and friends, that you can also practice in your daily life so that you don't have to yearn and grasp or to experience aversion, but you can just practice simply being beautiful, simply being free. Thank you, my dear ones.